Welcome back to Adrian's Avenue. And on the Avenue, you know how we do it. We help you make better decisions for a better life because your daily decisions determine your destiny. And today we got a great one in for you. We're going to talk about mutual funds versus index funds because I was somewhat confused at one point, and some of you guys may be confused at it, but these funds could be a game changer to your investment strategy. And we want to cover all the bases, make sure everyone is clear on these mutual funds versus index funds. Stay tuned. First, let's define what a mutual fund is as well as what an index fund is. Now, for the mutual funds, it's actually an investment product. So it's something that you can put your money into and invest to gain more money. So just know that the mutual fund is actually an investment product that you put money into. It's normally actively managed to help you gain as much money as you possibly can make in that fund. Now, an index fund is actually a type of fund. Index funds are focused more toward different indexes, such as the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones. And they are put together, that type of fund is put together to keep up with how the Dow Jones is performing and how our other indexes are performing. As far as the mutual fund actually tries to beat the market. So it's actively managed to try to beat the market. So there's two different things. A mutual fund is actually a product that you invest in, and the index fund is actually a type of fund. That being said, you can have a mutual fund that's an index fund, and you can have an exchange traded fund that's an index fund. So hopefully that clears up any confusion between the two as far as a mutual fund versus an index fund. Now let's focus on the differences in the two. The mutual fund is a fund that is actively managed. So they have people researching, buying and trading stocks and bonds and other instruments, investment instruments in that fund to make sure the goal is to beat what the market is producing. So because it's being actively managed, it's being watched, it's being looked at, it's research is going on to see where should the money be moved. Things are being bought and sold in these funds. It's actively managed because the goal of it is to outperform the market. As far as the index fund is concerned, the goal is to perform like the market is performing. So it's not actively managed, it's passively managed. They put funds together, such as in the Dow Jones, they'll put funds together that mirror that so that it can keep up with the Dow Jones. When the Dow Jones goes up, the index fund will go up. When it goes down, the index fund will go down, or the S&P, whichever fund that you have it invested in. And so this is meant to mirror that market. So you don't need a lot of watching. Just put the correct funds in there that mirror the funds that are in those large indexes, and you will keep up with that index. So there are two different outcomes, two different strategies for these funds. Now, needless to say, your next question is probably how much do these funds cost me? And so if one is actively managed, such as the mutual fund, of course, it's going to have a higher cost because you're paying people to actually look at it. Normally, mutual funds may have a mutual fund manager. That's the person that's over that fund. He or she may not be making all the decisions, but they ultimately make the decisions with that fund, what to buy, what to sell. This is their responsibility. So they are working for you. However, you are paying them to work for you. They don't work for free. These are highly paid people to do this. And sometimes they make it, sometimes they may not make the goals that set out for the mutual fund, but you have someone that's very versed in that mutual fund, versed in investing, and that's what you're paying them to do. The index fund, it's passively managed. It doesn't cost as much as the mutual fund. There may be some fees in there, but the mutual fund fees are much higher, and there are certain fees that you pay, such as sale fees for the mutual fund. You will pay expense ratios maybe, and you may pay transaction fees for the mutual fund. For the index fund, the funds, if you pay fees at all, they're very, very low. So those are the two differences in those two funds. And you can understand and see why the mutual fund will be much more expensive, because you're actually paying someone to be hands-on for that fund to make you as much money as they possibly can, because you've invested in that fund. And so they're out there to make you the money that you're expecting to get from that fund. Now let's touch a little bit on diversification. When it comes to an index fund, of course, you know, like we've said before, the index fund is going to mirror whatever fund that's out there, the S&P, the Dow Jones, whatever index that's out there, that's what it's going to mirror. So it will be diversified because those are diversified, but it's going to be diversified in that manner. As far as the mutual fund is concerned, it will be specifically put together to achieve whatever goal or objective that fund is going to do for you. So if it's in different sectors, it can be a certain sector. It'll be diversified in that sector only. Whatever goals that you're going to try to achieve with that, some funds are put together according to your specifications as well as the manager over that fund's specifications. So we have the difference there as far as the mutual fund is concerned and its level of diversification. Let's talk taxes. So with anything, when there are capital gain distributions, you are taxed within that year. When it comes to these funds, such as the index funds, there are not a lot of capital gain distribution in index funds because they're passively managed. There's not a lot of turnover there. But when it comes to mutual funds, there could be quite a bit of turnover because they're trying to make you money. And so when the capital gains happen and they feel like we need to sell this and pull these out and distribute them, you will have that tax implication. So in the mutual funds, you will have an impact on your taxes that are much higher than if you have an index fund. So when you overall look at it, the mutual fund, because you're making more money, or that is the objective of that fund, the fees are going to be higher, and then the taxes, when it comes to you at the end of the year, that's going to be higher. In the index fund, since the goal is to keep up with the actual indexes that are out there, and it's passively managed, because of the low turnover rate, you won't have as many capital gain distributions, and so it won't affect your taxes like the mutual fund will affect your taxes. Both of them affect taxes, but just know this when you go into it, and you'll know the difference and how it will or could affect your taxes at the end of the year. Whether you like mutual funds or index funds, doesn't matter. Choose one, but hit that like button and that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on the latest information as it becomes available to you. This is valuable information. Do more research on these funds because they can make a significant impact on your investment strategies. These are other funds out there aside from just savings accounts that you can put your money into and start to grow your money. Needless to say, all investments carry a risk because you're making money, you're putting money somewhere, and you're risking that money that it will produce you more money. So all of them carry a risk. That being said, when it comes to mutual funds or index funds, it depends on what your level of risk is that you want to actually occur. In the index funds, the risk that you have is the index market that you're trying to mirror. If the S&P 500 goes up, you're risking that. If it goes down, you may be risking that. If the Dow Jones goes up, that's where your risk is. When it comes to mutual funds, your risk is more of the sector, your goal that you're trying to accomplish in that particular mutual fund, as well as that manager, because the manager of the mutual fund makes a lot of decisions. And so if that manager is making good decisions, that's great for you. But if the manager is not making great decisions, or because of his decisions, if it was a decision that went the wrong way, that's where your money is being more risky. But you're paying him to handle your money. And that's the goal of the mutual fund. So there are risks out there. You can either have market risk, or you can have risk of the investment strategy for that mutual fund, as well as the manager over that mutual fund. Now that we've covered the basics of these funds, hopefully it's clear to you that one is an investment product and the other is a type of fund. Hopefully you know the difference in the actively or passively managed, the cost, diversification, all of that. If not, you can go back through the video and look at it again. But I want you to be crystal clear on the index funds and the mutual funds. What I'm going to give you now are some things that you want to think about before you invest in either of the funds. Now, you can go to yahoo.com to look at the funds. It will show what the funds are costing. It'll show their performance over the past and that type of thing. So do your research on these funds. There are some very good funds out there. I don't have any to recommend you at this point because I'm not invested heavily in either. I do have an ETF that I'm invested in, but I'm not invested heavily. And you know what? I do have a mutual fund that I'm invested in. Invested in it a long time ago and almost forgot about it. But do your research on these funds and see if they are something that you want to get. Invest your money in, because you can put the money in there, leave it and go and let it do its thing. I would check it just to make sure it's performing like it's supposed to perform. But here's some known facts about these funds, or little known facts about the funds. I don't want you to be caught off guard. We want to know everything about these funds that we can. And again, go out and do your research on the funds. Number one, not all mutual funds will make you money. We're talking about the mutual funds. So even though that there is a goal to beat the market, not all funds will beat the market. In the mutual fund, you could have what is called a load or no load mutual fund. If it's a load mutual fund, that means there's a sell fee. When there's buying and selling going on, you're paying a fee to do that. If it's a no load fund, there's no sales fee to do that. There are different classes of mutual funds. There could be A, B, and C. And with these different classes, there are different fee structures with these classes. Also, some have a minimum investment required. You can buy a mutual fund for a certain amount as long as you meet that minimum investment. Another thing you want to consider, and consider this really closely, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Mutual fund, there are a lot of mutual funds that have done a great job in the past, but in the future, they may not continue on that path. There are multiple factors to be considered when it comes to mutual funds. So don't get caught up on, just the fund is doing great and it made this much over in the past, so it will continue that. Look at some of the things that it's invested in. Look at how investments are going. Look at how the stock market's going, and then make your decision based on that. Next up, we have some little known facts about index funds. We'll go into that right now. Index funds, many can actually outperform the actively managed funds. That's something that most people don't think can happen. They are available both in mutual funds and exchange traded funds, ETFs. You can get index funds in either of those. Also, they offer dividend reinvestment in the index fund. So whatever dividend you make, it can be reinvested back into that fund and make you even more money. Index funds can also, instead of just following an index, they can be put together to follow a sector. So they can be diversified in a sector, targeting industries or sectors that you may be interested in. So if that's what you want to do, you can find an index fund for that. So there are many, many different index funds out there and many decisions that you can make. Do your research. I cannot emphasize that enough, is to do your research. But these are funds that can actually make you money. The last question I'm sure you have for me, well, Adrian, which is the better fund? And that will depend on how your risk adversity, how risky you want things to go, as well as your preference. If you like consistent returns, you can probably find those more in the index fund, because it's going to follow the indexes that are out there. And if you look back over the last 20 years, 30, 40 years, the indexes always, they go up. They may dip a little, but they will eventually go back up. And so they're following those indexes, making money and doing that. If you have a high risk tolerance, you may want to go with the mutual funds. The different kinds out there, there are some more risky than others, but that may be the way you want to go. Put your money in that and take a chance at making even more money than you would make in an index fund. But just so consider all of this. There is no one best over another. It just depends on what you want to do, what your goals are, and what your risk level is. So take that all in consideration and go out there, research, and go ahead and invest in one of these funds if that's what you'd like to do. With this being said, I will see you in the next video.